This is Gemara Nazir Daf Mem Hey. We're really holding in the top of Mem Hey Amid Aleph, but just as a way of minor hakdama, we finished off the daf discussing different areas within the Har Habayis Beis Hamikdash that the Nazir is allowed to go. As you see the words of the top Taisvis, which says Shar Nikanar. Excuse me. Baruch atah Adonai. In which Taisus points out, Shar Nikanar is the Ezas Nashim. And until that point is the Machane Leviyah. So just to remind ourselves, there are three basic areas, the camps of Klal Yisrael, which correspond on the Har Habayis. You have the Machane Shechina, Machane Leviyah, and Machane Yisrael. A Mitzayra cannot go into any of them, and a Nazir is allowed to enter to Shar Nikanar. Now, where is Shar Nikanar? That is going to be the Machane Leviyah. That's going to be the door of the Machane Leviyah, which is camp number 2. So we just finished off with a kasha, which the Gemara proves in the bottom of Dalet Amud Beis, that a Nazir Tameh brings the carbon at the Shar Nikanar. And if the drasha that we just said about Zav was correct, the equation of the drasha, it's an interesting kasha, because the Gemara proved, Pesach, and if it was true, the drush that we made, it would come out that the Nazir cannot even come to Shar Nikanar, which is not true, as we pick it up in the top of Mem Hey Amid Aleph. Mirti Shar Nikanar Heichal Kayamim. Where is Shar Nikanar? Top of Mem Hey, B'Shar Leviyah. V'atanya Tami Meis Mortalikanis Me'achal Leviyah. V'loi Tami Meis Levad Ela Afilu Meis Atzmai. You're even allowed to bring a mace into Machane Leviyah. Shenamar. What does it mean? So that's the end of the kasha, and therefore the Gemara is really asking on the din of Zav. That the din of Zav, the equation from the pasuk, should be the same by a Nazir. If a Nazir could enter into Shar Nikanar, that means our equation by Zav was wrong. So Elam Abaye, so Abaye said there were two details by Zav to get to there. The first one was that a Tful Yom Shel Zav is like a Zav Dami. So as says Elam Abaye, Tful Yom Shel Zav lav, the gear, so they added over here, is not Kizav. We thought that the reason why the Zav can't go in is because the Tful Yom of a Zav has the same din of a Zav. Answers Gemara, no. And still, it cannot enter. But now Abaye has to go back, and Abaye has to explain the Psukim. The Psukim sounds like they cannot enter into the Machane Leviyah. Now, if we know that one who is Mechusar Kapara, one who's waiting for his final Karbanos, is b'Machane Leviyah, is that the Machane Leviyah, is that the Shar Nikanar, like the Nazir? That's where he brings the Karbanos. He can't go past there, which is into the Machane Shechina, the first camp. Amaika Karle, Oyel Mayed. So why does the pasuk call it Oyel Mayed, which is where the Pesach to the Machane Shechina? Lemeimra Mahasa Mechusik Habara Lo Yayol. Amachal Leviyah Nami Mechusik Habara Nami Lo Yayol. V'Hasa Minolan. So says the Gemara. So where in the world? Where Lamaisa do we know this from? The Tanya Tami Yel Rabbis Tful Yoim. The Rabbis Tful Yoim. The pasuk says Tamei that when one is Tamei, he is Tamei. The rabbis Tful Yoim, Tful Yoim, Oy Tumasabai. The pasuk continues and says another word. First it says Tamei, then it continues Oy Tumasabai, which is the rabbis Mechusar Kapara, and that's how we know that they're not allowed to enter into the Machane Shechina. That wraps up the halachas of the karbanos of the Nazir that are brought. But yesterday we spoke about Tiglachas HaTamei. The Nazir Tamei, what happens? Now says the Gemara, Mishnah, tiglachas atayra keitzad. There's two forms of tiglachas, as we've seen many times. There's tiglachas hatame, which is when a Nazir becomes tummy, has to bring karbanah, shave his head, etc. Then we have tiglachas hatahira, which is when the Nazir finishes his requisite time of Nazir, so however it is, he brings the karbanos and shaves his head. Keitzad. So how does he do that? Says the Mishnah. Hayamevi gimel behemois chatos oila and shlamim. We've had this din already. Shaychet es shlamim. First he would check the shlamim megalech aleim, and then shave his head. Divi Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Lazar Aimer leim megalech ela ala chatos. So Rabbi Yehuda says the giluach the shaving is after the shlamim. Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Lazar says after the chatos. Why? Shachatos kedem is b'chol makom. But if he lamaisa did the giluach, he did the shaving in any of the three karbanos, yatsa. So it should be done in the chatos, says Rav Lazar, but any of the three is fine. Rashba goimer, hevi gimel behemos v'loy pirish. Let's say he brings three karbanos, a halacha that we dealt with extensively, and he doesn't say what is what. Each carbon, what is ra'i for, that is what it is brought for. So says the Gemara, Tanu Rabban, says the Gemara, where did Rav Yehuda get that the Giluach comes after the Shlamim? V'gilach ha-nazir pesach oyel moyid v'goymer. Says the Torah that the Nazir shaves his head at the entrance of the Oyel Moed. B'shlamim ha'kasa medaber. We're talking about the Shlamim right now. Why? Shenamar v'shachtu Pesach Oyel Moed. Because the Shlamim shchita is by the Pesach Oyel Moed. So just like there it says Pesach Oyel Moed, over here by the Giluach it says Pesach Oyel Moed. Says Rabbi Yehuda that teaches us that the mitzvah of Giluach is after the Shlamim. Says the Gemara, 1 second. Maybe the pasuk says v'gilach at the Pesach Almighty. You know why? To teach me that the Giluach is at the Pesach Almighty. You're telling me that it's teaching me what? That it's at the carbon by the Almighty, the Shlamim. Maybe it just means that they actually shave his head at the door of the Almighty. Says the Gemara, Amrit, it can't be. Imkein derech bizayinu, it's a bizayin to shave a head at the Pesach Almighty. Rav Yishai Oimer, Einay Tzarech. You don't need a pasuk. You don't need a svara, that it's a bizayon. Haryamra Torah. The Torah says, we know that the Kohanim are not allowed to walk up steps up to the Mizbech. Why not? Because it's the bizayon. So it says Rav Yishai, you don't need a svara. It's explicit. Just like the Kohanim can't go up steps, so too, the Nazir cannot shave his head at the Pesach Moed. Nusach acher b'medrash b'perasha in Nasai. So here we have, it's basically a davar acher. These brackets where they came from is unclear. V'gilach Nazir, Rav Yishai Omer b'shlam kasu medaber eino yel v'chulu. Im kach amer Torah lo sale v'chulu. The difference is in this lashon, it's Rav Yishai himself bringing down the pasuk. So, two different ways that we know that the giluach, the shaving of the Nazir, cannot be at the Pesach, oyel moed. Rav Yitzchak Amar says, Rav Yitzchak Einay Tzarech. Why? We don't need these psukim. We don't need any of this. Harei oimer v'lokach esar roish nizroi b'nasan al ha'eish. It says, he takes the hair of the Nazir and places it on the fire. The pasuk is referring to something that you need to take and place in the fire. This is excluded, the shaving of the head. Therefore, it is done at the Pesach Oyel Moed. What's Rav Yitzchak learning? Rav Yitzchak's learning, you know what the pasuk could have said? Pasuk should have said he takes his hair. Why is it right in this order? So it must be that we're learning, says Rav Yitzchak, not like the first two opinions, that the shaving is done at the Pesach Al Moed. Ikati Amri, another way of learning what we just said. Rav Yitzchak Omer, B'Sham HaKazim Medaber. And to be more explicit in Ikati Amri. Which one is it? Is it telling me that you have to do the Giluach after the Shlamim? Or is it telling me at the Pesach it should be done at the entrance? Look at Chesar Roish Nizroi. Makim Shahaya Mivashel Sham Haya Migaleach. There it is, explicit. Says Rav Yitzchak in the location that is where they cook the shlamim, that is where he shaves his head. So it teaches me you don't have to move anywhere. It's right there. It's right at the Pesach Oyel Moed. Abba Chanan Omer Mishom Rav Eliezer says Abba Chanan V'gilach Nazir Pesach Oyel Moed calls the man she'ein Pesach Oyel Moed Pasuach Einoi Migaleach. Says Rabbi Chanan, no. You know we learn out from the pasuk that whenever the door is not open, he can't shave his head. That Pesach means the door, the opening of the Almighty. So says Rav Elazar, what do we learn out from the pasuk? That you're only allowed to shave his head when the doors are open. What does it mean the doors are open? A concept that we had back in Psachim doesn't mean the doors are open. Mamish, it means that it's Zman that the doors are open. What is the Zman that the doors are open? During the day, not at night. We know the Levium, their jobs were to open and shut the gates at the beginning and close of the day. So says Abba Chanan, that's when the Nazir does the Giluach during the daylight hours. But he agrees that it's not done. It's not done at the Pesach Hamayit. So if you're keeping math over here, we had two reasons not to do it at Pesach Hamayit. Either it's a Bezayin, or learn out from the steps of the Mizbeach. Abba Chanan says, you know why it's not at the Pesach Hamayit? Because it just means at the time of the Pesach, during the daylight. And then we have Rav Yishai in the middle that says it's Lamaisa at the actual Pesach Hamayit. Rav Shimon Shezuri Omer on the last line, V'gilach HaNazir Pesach Hamayit, V'loi Nizira, says Rav Shimon Shezuri, you know we learn out the pasuk that it's only a Nazir. V'gilach HaNazir. And what happens if a woman becomes a Nazir and Nizira? She does not shave her head at the Pesach Oyel Moed. Why not? So now Rav Shimon Shezira seemingly is learning that it's actually done at the Pesach Oyel Moed, but he's machalik between male and female. He allows the actual shaving to be at the Pesach Oyel Moed, but he says a woman who's a Nazira who's shaving her head, she cannot do it at the Pesach Oyel Moed. Why not? Says the Gemara as we turn over to Memhei Amid Beis. You know why? Because Shema Yiskaber Ba Pirchei Kuna. Maybe the Pirchei Kuna, the young Kohanim, are going to be excited by seeing this woman's hair uncover. We know Seir Isha Arva. The hair of a woman is an Arva, so we don't want to uncover her hair near the Beis HaMikdash, near the Oyel Moed, so as not to excite and entice the young Kohanim. Amar Lo, he responds to the Gemara, 1 second. To Shim Shizuri, Litzvarecha Soita Techiach. 1 second, Shim Shizuri. You're telling me we're concerned about uncovering your hair at the entrance of Al-Mahid? What about a Soita? Tichsiv Ba V'amid Al Hashem. That we stand there in front of Hashem by the Pesach Al-Mahid, V'lichashinan, Shem Yizkabra Pirchei Kuna. And over there, we uncover her head. We actually take down her top half of her clothing, and we're not worried. So why over here are we worried? Answers the Gemara, this Nazir is wearing makeup. So she's wearing makeup and then she's going to take off her hair. Then we got to be nervous. But she's not wearing makeup. Therefore, even though she's going to be revealed, we're not concerned about exciting the Kohanim due to the lack of attraction that she has in that situation. And we continue with the Mishnah on Memhei Amid Beis. Hayanoitel Sar Roishai Nizrai Umeshaleach Tachas Hadot. They would take the hair of the Nazir. So we're going through the whole process. We did the karbanos. We did the shaving of the head. And what do we do with the hair? You take the hair and you throw it on the fire that's underneath the pot that's cooking the karban shlam. Ve'em gilach b'medina. Let's say he didn't shave it right there. He shaved it outside of Yerushalayim. Then they wouldn't throw it onto the pot. But Medvar Mamurim says the Mishnah. When does this apply? Only a Nazir to hire that shaving. He said, everyone agrees they would not put that hair underneath the pot of the karban shlamim. Rabbi Meir Omer, Hakol Mishachan Tachas Hadochos Ben Hatamei Shev Medina bilvad. Says Rameir, the only time you don't put the hair under the dud is a Nazir Tameh who shaved outside. So he takes a dual level over here. So again, Tanakama says if they shave inside Yerushalayim, the hair goes under the dud. Outside Yerushalayim, it doesn't get burned up. Rameir's, but the Mishnah continues that's only by a Nazir Tahar. A Nazir Tameh, you don't burn up the hair under the pot of the carbon shlamim. Rabbi Meir says no. Says Rabbi Meir, all the hair of the Nazir gets burned up. But unless the Nazir Tameh that's outside Yerushalayim, so you have both things together, Nazir Tameh and outside Yerushalayim, then Rabbi Meir concedes you don't burn it underneath the pot of the carbon shlamim. Says the Gemara, not till Sar Roishai Nizri. Tan Rabbanan, we learned in a Raisa, V'yachar noitel Saroite, v'noisen ala Saroish Nizrai. We learned in a Raisa a few more details that add in to what the Mishnah is discussing. They take some of the gravy, the Roitev. What gravy? The carbon shlamim is sitting and cooking here in a pot. So you take a scoopful of gravy. What do you do with the gravy? And you put it on the hair of the Nazir's head. Not on his head exactly, on the hair that's cut off. You have the pile of hair. You put the gravy on top of it. And then you put it underneath the pot. And let's say you put it under the wrong pot. You remember you have 3 karbanos, chatos, oil, and shlamim. So let's say you put under the chatos, the asham. Let's say you put under the pot of the chatos or the asham, you're supposed to put under the shlamim. Excuse me, I said it wrong. I said chatos, oil, and shlamim. No, chatos, shlamim, and asham. So if you put it under the chatos or the asham, by Nazir Tar, excuse me, I skipped the word, Yatsa. You are Yatsa, your obligation of burning the hair. Asham bin Nazir Tar mi'ika. So the Gemara says, 1 second. Just like I just said. I said that we learned yesterday. If you flip back to Daf Mem Dalid, what do we say by Mem Dalid? We said there were 3 karbanos. We said, nope. Where are the 3 karbanos? We said that there's the karban Chata Shlamim and Oila. So ask the Gemara, where did the Asham come from? Asham and Nazir Tahar. Asham is when he didn't have Eira. By Nazir Tameh. Why is there an Asham by a Nazir Tahar? Amar Rava Achikama. This is what we just meant. We didn't Ve'im Nazir Tameh. Asham Yatsa. Only by Nazir Tameh. You're right. Minani Mili. Says the Gemara. From where do we know this from? Amar Rava, Amar Kra, Asher Tachas Zevach Hashlamim Mizivchai. Excuse me. Says Tachas Zevach Hashlamim. Says Rava, it says underneath the carbon shlamim. Mizivchai Yihei Tachtav. What do we learn from here? That his carbon, his sacrifice, should be underneath. This is where we learn that it should be put underneath the pot, and that is where it's going to be burned together with the hair. Ve'im shlilach tachsatud shal chatos yotza. My time, says the Gemara. Amar kra zevach l'rabbi zachatos ve'asham. I asked the Gemara of Afikse lai zevach meiroitef. Ask the Gemara 1 second. But we exclude this carbon with regarding the gravy. Meaning, this is the pasuk that teaches me that you put the gravy in. So how do you know this can teach me anything else? In my zevach. Why does the pasuk use the word zevach? If it just teaches me the din of the right, if it should have stopped there. Shema mina, you know what it teaches me? The rabbis chatos v'asham. So it can teach me 2 dinim that it could be including the chatos and the asham. That you're allowed to burn the hair underneath both of them. Ask the Gemara, ve'ema kula chatos asham udasa. Maybe we should say that this word zevach comes to include the chatos and the asham, meaning maybe it only comes to teach me that. How do you know that it also teaches me about the Raitef? If you go up a few lines when the Gemara began, this is the pasuk that we quoted about the Raitef. So ask the Gemara, maybe this pasuk only talks about burning the hair together with the carbon chatas and asham underneath. How do you know it also teaches me the Raitef? Answers the Gemara, Imkein leima shlamim v'zevach. My zevach hashilamim shmamina tarti. Number one, it teaches me it's burnt underneath the pot of the carbon. Number two, it teaches me that you have to burn it together with the roitev. We conclude with one last brisa. Tan Rabbanan hakol yamashachan tachzad dorchot mitamei. This is a quote similar to Rameir, the end of the Mishnah, that everything would be burnt aside for the carbon Nazir Tameh that was shorn the hair outside of Yerushalayim. So this Brisa adds on a detail according to Rameir that the reason why it's not burnt is because it's buried. Rav Yehuda Aimer says Rav Yehuda Tahirim Mekan V'Kan Mishalchin. Says Rav Yehuda, the Nazirim that are tahar, wherever they would shave their head, would put underneath the pot to burn it. Temeim kan vekan loya mishalchin. So Rav Yehuda argues entirely, and Rav Yehuda's machalti tar and tamei. If you're tar, you burn it. You tamei, you don't. Rameir just said if you're tamei and outside Yerushalayim, then it's not burnt. But tamei in Yerushalayim is burnt. Rav Yehuda says tamei is never burnt under the pot. The other opposite extreme, the only one you would burn is the Nazir tar that's short in the head of the base of Mikdash and Nasa Kemitzvasai, because that was done properly. That is the reason why, says the Chacham, that's the only one that's burned. So we have the two extremes. We have Rav Yehuda, Rameir, that says everything is burnt aside for the Nazir Tameh. B'Medina, Chachamim say nothing is burnt aside for Nazir tar b'Mikdash, and then we have Rav Yehuda in the middle. Let's say a tar is always burnt, a tummy is never burnt. Pick it up from the Mishnah the next year. B'siyata Dishmaya.